Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Gray, your one and only corrupted angel, and today we're playing more Warframe. More specifically, we are going to be doing a review on a very interesting secondary weapon by the name of the Akstileto Prime. Now, I will admit, before we get into this, the Akstileto Prime is very much so a not great weapon. It isn't amazing, but I think that to the level in which the community dislikes this weapon, I would say is a bit excessive and definitely is undeserving of what the weapon can do. It is a single target weapon and does unfortunately have zero in the way of incarnans or zero in the way of any like punch through and anything like that that really allows it to clear hordes of enemies, but with a little tender loving care, I was able to make this gun pretty serviceable with a Riven, and definitely serviceable when you pair it with someone like Gaia that gives crit, Harrow that gives crit, or just someone like Raw from Rhino or Mirage with Eclipse, or even Promo with his various status chance buffs. This is very much so a status weapon, but with the right Riven, you can make it a bit of a 50-50 weapon, which is really, really nice. And it really takes buffs well. Not to say that every weapon doesn't take buffs well, but this one definitely takes any buffs a lot better than others because of the fact that it is not necessarily the greatest from the very beginning. But anyway, let's get into the build. We'll show it off. We'll show what I've done with it, and we will also talk about a couple of options in case you are perhaps not able to get a Riven like mine. So to start off with, let's talk about the build. It is a viral heat build, with the idea being that, you know, you get your viral, you get your heat, you get that extra damage against health enemy. It's going to be really easy to do it, especially with secondary fortifier giving us that extra bit of punch against overguarded enemies. I really like secondary fortifier on this weapon, but if you don't have secondary fortifier, or you don't have perhaps the Riven that I'm gonna be showing off in this video, then very much so consider putting on either a magnetic mod instead of the Riven, or putting on a toxic, like a basic toxic mod instead. And then going with Cascadia Flare. With the heat charges, it works really, really nicely because this, again, is a really good status weapon. So you can get those heat procs to max straight away, and it becomes really, really good because Cascadia Flare is just a really fun option, providing quite a ridiculous amount of damage. Like 480% damage is absurd, and it just keeps going with this weapon. It's basically guaranteed to just keep stacking damage if you need to do it that way. So let's get into the Riven first of all. Obviously we've got Primed Heated Charge for our heat, and then we've got Frostbite, which is pairing with our Toxic Riven. This Toxic Riven does provide 11% more toxic damage than perhaps a Frostbite would, and rather than giving status percent chance, it actually takes it away. But what it returns you with is 169% damage and 110% critical chance. This makes it a significantly different experience to play than if you had this on. You would lose about 16.9% critical chance if you put Pistol Pestilence on, but you would get that 90% status that I was mentioning earlier. If you're going to go this build, please swap over from secondary fortifier to something else, in my personal opinion. And maybe even consider looking at maybe a magnetic build instead if you really are struggling against those Eximus enemies. But Cascadia Flare will give you way more damage than this build will. But I like this build as it does a really, really good job of giving you a bit more crit, so that way we can get those crits, and then still giving us plenty of damage to punch through those awful Eximus units that plague the late game. to the degree that it is a real problem. Other than that, though, we have Galvanized Shot and Galvanized Diffusion. These two are obviously very, very necessary. Normally, if you're a fan of the channel, you would know that I would normally run Amalgam Barrel Diffusion, but today I'm running Galvanized Diffusion, and the reason why is because this gun just needs as much love as possible in terms of damage output. So if we don't give it this, we are going to notice that it's lacking. We've got the crit mods on here. Again, I only went with this sort of a crit build because of the existence of even more critical chance here. I can definitely see a world where you forego the crit altogether because it's just not critting enough and not for large enough, and instead just become an absolute status applier where you just apply all of the status effects. You know, getting a magnet mod here, as well as maybe even accelerated isotope for some extra fire rate, right? Or putting just base damage in instead, and then going with accelerated isotope or the magnetic rounds, whichever you prefer. Obviously, the magnetic rounds give you crit damage, which isn't super useful, but it's there, and that's a thing that we should always consider as well. So definitely remember that not everyone has all of the mods in the world. So if you don't have these mods in particular, you can substitute them and still make this thing work as a primer or as a status just machine that's going to give you a crap load of status effects on your gun. So there is that to consider as well. Nevertheless, let's get into our MOT run that we always do. We've got Inaros ready to go, and we're going to just do a quick 5-minute MOT run. We're going to see if we can kill a assassin with this gun as well. I honestly don't know if we can. I haven't done a practice run yet with the assassin soloing it with no buffs. But again, like I said before, this gun is one that you would probably take with a Warframe that is going to give it some damage buffs. A great example would be, for example, just having a Jade on your team. Having a Jade on your team or something like that that can give you damage, or potentially just using some damage buffs yourself, like Rhino and stuff like that, will go way further on this gun than any other gun that you might mess around with. As you can see though, it still very much so deals with people just fine. Only downside to it though is, again, it's single target. This is the major problem as well, is that it's single target, and without crits, it can be a little bit hard to necessarily get many kills with. Just because they can sometimes, like if I don't hit heads, it does take a little bit longer, right, to get rid of. It does take a little bit longer to get rid of. We do have plenty of viral procs and heat procs being applied as well, though, to all of these enemies. So we're getting plenty of procs off. And if I didn't have, for example, my ribbon mod on here, it would be like pretty much every single hit applying a proc as well, which is just egregious. We don't need that many, but we could definitely be doing that. And that would be a lot of fun too. But it does like punch through, as I mentioned. I hope that one day this gun gets a incarnate form. I definitely think it deserves it. Maybe something unique, something fun, even if it's just something that's going to give you the standard way that this gun works, but instead of just having no bonus other than like maybe some heat or something, maybe they can give it punch through. That would be a really nice way to balance this gun, I think, honestly, if it had innate punch through, just to help it clear, because the damage isn't bad, as you can see. It's mainly just the fact that it's single target, and that's not really the meta, especially not anymore. If we get any Xmas units killed, this guy here will be all good as well. Yeah, this guy is going to die really quick because we've got that fortifier on, as you saw. Didn't take long at all. and he went down without a hitch. We'll group some people up, and you can see what I mean. Really doesn't quite cover it. It doesn't do well enough at clearing the field when you've got the unfortunate circumstance that is no punch through. But that's okay. All right, let's go out of here real quick. We'll grab some life support just to help us out here. But like I said, this weapon does have its upsides. It's performing well without any buffs. It's going to perform even better with buffs. And you got to remember too that 90% of the time you're going to actually be using a Warframe that does things. So having a nice utility weapon like this that just really rips through whatever you need it to rip through with status on one particular enemy, even if it's just dealing with Xmas units, give it some magnet, give it some magnetic, give it some viral, maybe some radiation just for shits and giggles, secondary fortifier on there as well. You're going to be living it up, absolutely having a great time with it. It's going to kill any pesky Xmas units that you don't really have the ability to deal with your main weapon or your Warframe, perhaps. Maybe you're playing a caster frame, whatever the case may be. This secondary will do its job on some of those tougher enemies just fine. But I really enjoy it. I think it's a really cool weapon. I'm a sucker for dual wielding weapons. I really like them. There will be a Dex Furus build probably coming out soon, as well as a couple of other videos on some other dual wielding weapons in the very, very near future as well. I apologize again for my massive break that I took over the recent week. It's just been a very busy time. Let's try it on a heavy gunner. He just immediately evaporated. Poor guy. We got the assassin coming in finally. It's misery. I am in misery. Mr. Misery, hi. Mr. Misery, stay still.
The raid is off to a successful start.
Yeah, it doesn't quite do as much damage as I'd like against a bad assassin man. Get rid of some of these enemies real quick. There is an assassin somewhere in here. I would like to kill him before we finish this review off, but it seems to be incredibly hard again without any punch through or AoE. Maybe DE can give us a new Incarnon week sometime soon. Give this bad boy an Incarnon. There we go. He's finally down. Let's get out of here. We're finally all good. Again, it's not the worst weapon in the world, and definitely something that I think a lot of people believe to be quite underrated, which is a shame, because I think as a whole, you know, we played this game with the idea in mind of getting to play our favorite weapons, our favorite Warframes, and somehow making it work in almost every single situation. I've seen everything from Valbin mains that have suffered through years of Valbin neglect to current day Ivara mains. Heaven forbid. I've seen people that absolutely love bow weapons, even though they're not like extremely great. And I'm not talking about the AoE bow weapons. I'm talking about like the Dread and the Daikyu and stuff like that, right? So I definitely think that underrating a weapon like this and saying that it's terrible and that it's useless is just really disappointing to see. And I hope that you guys at least now know that this weapon very much so can and will perform under pretty much any circumstance that you need it to. It won't excel better than every weapon in the game, but it is not by any means useless. It's not some Mark 1 Bratton. It is still a primed weapon that is doing decent damage. With that in mind, though, it is time for us to finish the video. Please, if you haven't already, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that sort of jazz. I'm doing daily uploads again now that I'm back from my ridiculously long and expensive and extensive week of just work and other ridiculous stuff. A big appreciation as well to everyone that has been stopping by the Twitch streams, hanging out, having a good time. I am a War Thunder content creator over on Twitch. It's another free-to-play game that I definitely recommend you go check out. Give some love to the Twitch, because we just hit our 1-year anniversary on Twitch, and we will eventually be hitting our 1-year anniversary on YouTube as well. Hopefully in the next like 6 months. So big thank you to you all. Much love, and I will see you next time. Bye.